My son raised his glass, smiled at the 400 guests, and then called my husband a stray dog I picked up from the street. People laughed. Some tried to hide it behind their napkins. Some didn't even bother. I felt my soul leave my body for a moment. I froze. Before I go on, if you care about mothers like me, if you've ever loved an elder who gave you everything and got nothing back, please like this video and subscribe. It means more to me than you know, baby. My name is Ellie. I was 61 years old the night my only son shattered my heart with a champagne flute in his hand. The ballroom was glittering, gold chandeliers, soft music, the smell of roasted rosemary chicken drifting through the air. I'd spent my entire life savings on that wedding, not because I wanted to feel rich, but because I wanted, for once, to feel celebrated. I had married for love the first time. I was marrying for love again. That was my crime. My new husband, Henry, sat beside me in his simple gray suit, the kind you buy on sale and take care of for years. His shoes weren't designer. They were polished, old leather with creases that told stories. His hands rested calmly on his lap, knuckles rough, veins raised under sun-spotted skin. He looked like what he was, a man who had worked hard his whole life. But in my son's Daniel's world, that meant nobody. "Mom," Daniel said into the microphone, swaying just enough for me to smell the alcohol on his breath, even from the head table. "You always had interesting taste, but this one?" He pointed at Henry with his glass. "You really scraped the bottom of the barrel." I heard my daughter-in-law snort. Tasha, in her tight red dress and glittering jewelry, leaned toward her mother, whispering loudly, "Look at him. He looks like the gardener snuck in wearing the groom suit." Laughter. Loud, sharp, cruel. It bounced off the crystal walls and landed right in my chest. My fingers trembled against the stem of my glass. My throat burned. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, neighbors, old church ladies, colleagues, people who would only come for the free food. But all I could think was, that's my child. My child? Calling me a fool in front of everyone? Calling my husband trash without saying the word. I blinked, trying to keep my mascara from running. The string quartet had stopped playing. The waiters froze mid-step, holding trays of sparkling drinks between tables. Even the air felt embarrassed. Henry reached under the table and gently squeezed my knee. His touch was steady. Mine was not. "Sit down, Daniel," I whispered, but he couldn't hear me over his own pride. And what he said next? That was the moment everything inside me finally cracked. But that was only the beginning.
You don't end up in a moment like that all at once. No, baby. You arrive there slowly, one small heartbreak at a time. Sometimes I lie awake at night and trace it all the way back to the first time Daniel rolled his eyes at me as a teenager, the first time he told me I was embarrassing because of the way I talked, the way I dressed, the way I smelled faintly of bleach from cleaning other people's houses. When his father died, Daniel was 23 and busy becoming someone important. He wore expensive cologne and talked about networking and assets. I only understood half the words, but I understood the distance. It started with missed calls. "Sorry, Mom, I've been so busy." Then holiday spent with Tasha's family this year. Then my birthday forgotten. I used to sit in my little kitchen, the clock ticking too loudly, my hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of tea. I'd stare at my phone, whispering, "He'll remember. He has to remember." The tea always went cold before the phone ever rang. For 35 years, I scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, and cleaned windows clear you'd think there was no glass at all. My knees are ruined from those years. My back sings a dull, constant song of ache. But I did it because I wanted one thing, just one thing for my boy. A life better than mine. Private school, tutor, nice clothes so he wouldn't be teased. When I didn't have enough money, I sold my wedding bangles. Cheap gold, but precious to me. When he wanted a computer, I took a night shift cleaning offices downtown. I'd get home when the sky was turning purple, wash my hands with harsh soap, and then wake him up for school with a smile. He never knew what those years cost me. Maybe I never made him look closely enough. Then, 15 years after I buried his father, I met Henry. It was raining the first day I saw him. I remember because I had holes in my shoes, and when I stepped off the bus, a cold patch of water spread through my sock like an unwelcome secret. I ducked under the awning of a corner grocery, shaking the rain from my scarf, and there he was, an old man in a faded jacket, carefully counting coins for a loaf of bread. The cashier sighed loudly. He kept apologizing, his hands trembling slightly. "Take the bread," I told the girl. "Put the rest on my bill." His eyes lifted to mine, soft and surprised. "You don't have to do that," he murmured. "I know, but I want to." That was how it started, with wet socks, cheap bread, and a thank you that felt different. I didn't know then that the man I was buying bread for would become my husband, and I certainly didn't know how my son would use that against me. I had no idea what truth was waiting for me.
Henry started showing up at the grocery every Thursday morning after that. He'd claim it was a good day for fresh fruit, but I knew better. His eyes always searched for me first, moving slowly over the crowd until they landed on my face. He wasn't handsome in the young way. His beauty was in the kindness around his mouth, the patience in his eyes, the way he listened like every word that came out of my mouth was worth keeping. We'd walk home together sometimes. He'd carry my heavier bags, even if his own shoulders seemed stiff. We'd talk about little things, the weather, the price of potatoes, the birds that kept nesting on my balcony. One day as we passed the park, he said quietly, "I lost my wife 8 years ago. Cancer." I stopped walking. "I lost my husband 15 years ago," I whispered back. We stood there in silence while children squealed on the swings and a dog barked at leaves. Shared grief has its own language. You don't have to explain much. With Henry, I never felt judged. I could show up with my cheap sandals and swollen ankles, and he'd still look at me like I was the brightest thing in the room. When I laughed at his silly jokes, he'd watch me like he was memorizing my face. "You deserve softness," he told me once, while we sat on a park bench, sharing roasted peanuts. "You fought your whole life. Let someone hold you now." The first time I told Daniel about Henry, he stared at me over his coffee mug like I'd spoken a foreign language. "How old is he?" Daniel asked. 65. "What does he do?" He's retired now. He used to work construction." Daniel's lip curled just enough for me to notice. "Construction? You mean like a laborer?" "He's a good man," I said, my voice small. "He's gentle. He listens to me." Tasha, sitting beside him, let out a short laugh. "So you're dating some broke old handyman, and you didn't think to ask our opinion?" Our opinion. My life. Their opinion. That was the first time I felt the line being drawn. From there, it got worse. Missed dinners, snide comments, Tasha showing up at my apartment and suggesting I sign over some of my savings to Daniel for better management. I ignored the warning bells because mothers do that. We turn red flags into pink ribbons and call it love. When Henry proposed to me with a simple silver ring under that same park tree, I said yes through tears. When I told Daniel, he didn't say congratulations. He said, "You're going to embarrass me. Never thought it would come to this." And yet the worst was still ahead of me.
The day of the wedding was bright and cruel. Sunlight spilled through the tall ballroom windows like liquid gold. The air smelled of roses and roasted garlic and a hint of expensive perfume. I should have been floating. Instead, I felt like I was walking toward a storm without an umbrella. I had paid for everything. Every chair, every plate, every flower, with money I'd spent a lifetime earning one scrubbed floor at a time. I didn't even argue when Tasha insisted we invite her whole extended family, people I barely knew. Slick suits, loud laughter, perfume so strong it arrived in the room before they did. "Appearance is important, Ellie," she said, adjusting her diamond earring in my mirror. "We don't want people to think this is some cheap secondhand wedding, do we?" I looked at my reflection beside hers, her smooth young face, mine wrinkled one, her professionally done hair, my thinning bun. I forced a smile and smoothed my dress, pale gold satin that rustled softly when I moved. Henry waited for me at the altar, his suit carefully pressed, his tie a little crooked. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears so quickly he had to look down. "Beautiful," he whispered when I reached him. "You look like a miracle." For a little while, I believed it would all be okay. The officiant spoke about love and second chances, about companionship in old age. I could feel the warmth of Henry's hand in mine, his thumb gently tracing circles on my skin. Then Daniel laughed. Loudly. It cut through the ceremony like a knife through silk. Tasha leaned toward her mother, though her voice carried easily. "Look at him in that cheap suit. I've seen janitors dressed better." Snickers. Eye rolls. Phones lifted. Recording. My ears buzzed. I tasted metal at the back of my throat. When it was time for Henry to say his vows, his voice shook, but his words were pure. "I don't have riches to offer you, but I have a heart that has stayed faithful, even through loneliness. I promise you peace, respect, and a hand to hold until my last day." Someone in the back murmured, "How romantic." I heard soft sighs. Then, from our family table, "This is pathetic," Daniel said, standing up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Every head turned. The officiant's voice faltered into silence. "Mom, you really expect us to sit here and pretend this man," he waved his hand at Henry like shooing a fly, "is worthy of you or of our family name?" I felt my heart tumble inside my chest. "Daniel, sit down," I whispered. He didn't. Not that day. What came next shattered everything I believed.
"Someone has to say the truth," Daniel announced, stepping into the aisle like it was a stage. His voice echoed through the ballroom, bouncing off the chilled faces around us. "You worked your whole life, Mom. Dad left you a decent inheritance, and this is what you do with it? Marry a broke stranger who probably saw you coming and thought, perfect, easy money." Gasps. A fork clattered against a plate somewhere. Tasha stood up beside him, a cruel smile spread across her lips. "He's not a stepfather, he's a stray. Trash you dragged in to keep from dying alone." Laughter rolled through Tasha's side of the family like a wave. Phones were out. I saw screens pointed at me, at Henry, at my humiliation. It felt like my very shame was being live-streamed. My vision blurred, my chest hurt in a way I'd never felt, not even in labor, not even when the doctor told me my husband wasn't waking up. This pain was hollowing. "Please stop," I managed, my voice barely audible. I looked at Henry. His jaw was set, but his eyes were gentle, steady. He didn't flinch, didn't fire back. He just held my gaze, as if to say, "I'm here, you're not alone." But I felt utterly alone. In my mind, I saw every sacrifice, every double shift, every night I fell asleep in my work clothes because I was too tired to undress, every time I said no to myself so I could say yes to my child. And that child stood there now, pointing at the man I loved like he was a piece of trash on the sidewalk. Something inside me snapped. It didn't break quietly. My chair scraped backwards as I stood. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out stronger than it had in years. "You're right, Daniel," I said, surprising even myself. "Someone does have to tell the truth today." The room fell into a strange, dense silence. Even the air felt heavy. "You want to talk about money? Let's talk." My fingers curled tightly around the back of my chair. Who worked 12-hour days so you could go to private school? Who scrubbed other people's toilets so you could wear brand-name shoes? Who skipped doctor's appointments because your tuition was due? Color rose in his cheeks, but he lifted his chin stubbornly. Who, I continued, my voice growing more and more steady, who sold her wedding jewelry when you needed a new laptop? Who signed a loan with interest, her own son charging her interest just to fix a leaking roof? People were staring at him now. I saw judgment in their eyes, confusion, pity, but not for him, for me. Tasha scoffed. "Oh, here we go. Poor Ellie, the eternal victim." I turned to her slowly. "This is my wedding. You don't get to stand here and spit on my happiness." She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. Enough. That one word felt like it had been waiting at the back of my throat for years. "I will not let my own child," I said, looking at Daniel, "and his wife and her entire pack of jackals," I nodded toward her family, "turn this day into a circus." I took a deep breath that rattled through my bones. "Get out." The room gasped as one. Daniel stared at me like I'd slapped him. "What?" "I meant it," I said, my voice no longer shaking. "You, your wife, her family, leave my wedding now." And as they started arguing, shouting, threatening, I had no idea that the man standing quietly at my side was keeping a truth that would change everything. What came next turned my whole world upside down.
Security escorted them out in a storm of perfume, anger, and tossed-aside napkins. Daniel's last words before the doors closed behind him were, "You just lost your only son." When the ballroom finally went quiet, I was shaking so badly I thought my knees would give way. My lipstick was smudged, my mascara streaked my cheeks. Some guests looked away, embarrassed, while others stared openly, their eyes full of sympathy. I wanted to disappear. Henry stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me gently, like I was made of glass. He smelled faintly of soap and aftershave, nothing fancy, just clean, solid. "I'm so sorry," I sobbed into his chest. "I ruined everything. Your wedding, I turned it into a disaster." "You didn't ruin anything," he murmured into my hair. "You defended yourself. You defended us. I've never been prouder of you." The guests, my friends, neighbors, old coworkers, began to clap softly. It grew, little by little, into a warm, supportive applause that wrapped around me like a blanket. The officiant cleared his throat gently. "Shall we continue?" he asked. I wiped my face with a napkin, laughed a little broken laugh, and nodded. "Yes," I whispered. "Let's finish what we started." We did. The rest of the ceremony felt strange, tender, raw. When Henry slid the ring onto my finger, his hands were steady. Mine were not. Later, as the band started to play again, and people tried to bring back some normalcy, Henry led me to a quieter corner near the window. Outside, the sky was turning a deep, dusky blue. City lights flickered on one by one, like stars deciding to show up early. "There's something I need to tell you," he said softly. My heart clenched. I thought, here it comes. The secret, the illness, the hidden wife. I braced myself. He took a deep breath. "Ellie, I haven't been completely honest about my life." Cold crept up my spine. "What do you mean?" He looked almost shy. That surprised me. "I let you believe," he said slowly, "that all I had was a small pension and a cheap apartment. That I was just an old laborer who'd scraped by. That isn't exactly true." I frowned. "Henry, I don't understand." He squeezed my hands. "Before I retired, I built a construction company from the ground up, one project at a time. Apartment buildings, shopping centers, hotels. I've done quite well." My mind tried to catch up. How well? He held my gaze, his eyes gentle but unwavering. "Well enough," he said, "that if I never worked another day in my life, or yours in yours, we would still never run out of money." I stared at him, my brain refusing to process the words. I felt foolish, dizzy. "What are you saying?" I whispered. "I'm saying, sweetheart," he replied, "that I am not poor. I am very far from poor. I chose to live simply so I could see who loved me and not my wallet." I grabbed the back of a chair. The room tilted for a second. My best friend Marta hurried over, her eyes wide. "You okay, Ellie?" I nodded weakly. I I don't think I understand anything anymore." Henry's next sentence would explain why he let my son think he was a nobody, and I had no idea how much Daniel's greed was about to cost him. We sat in Henry's small apartment the next morning, an apartment I now knew he could have traded for a palace at any moment. The place looked different to me. The clean but worn couch, the simple curtains, the chipped mug he always used. "How long?" I asked quietly, cradling a cup of tea between my palms. My hands still shook slightly. "Years," he admitted. "After my first wife died, I saw how people changed around me when they realized what I was worth on paper. Friends, cousins, business partners, everyone had a proposal or a crisis. Everyone needed something." He sighed, rubbing his thumb along a crack in the table. "I got tired, so I stepped back, let managers run the company, moved here, wore cheap clothes, drove an old car, watched who treated me like a person and who treated me like a stepping stone." "And me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He smiled softly. "You bought me bread when you saw I was short $1. You invited me into your home with mismatched plates and chipped cups and acted like you were serving a king. You never asked what I had. You only asked how my day was. You loved me when you thought I had nothing to offer you but love." Tears pricked my eyes again. I was so tired of crying, but they kept coming. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because," he said gently, "I wanted you to see your son clearly first, to see who he was when he thought I had nothing to offer you but love." His words settled heavy in my chest. Images from the wedding flashed through my mind. Daniel's sneer, Tasha's cruel laughter, their mocking voices. "I failed him," I whispered. "Somewhere along the way, I raised a man who values money more than his own mother." "Don't do that," Henry said firmly. "You gave him everything you had, but once children grow, they choose their own road. His choices are not your fault." As if on cue, my phone buzzed on the table. Daniel. I stared at his name blinking on the screen. My thumb hovered over the green button, then moved to the red. I did nothing. Let it ring out. It buzzed again, this time a message. "I should tell you," he said quietly, picking up his own phone. "He's been calling me too." My head snapped up. "What?" He found my full name on the wedding license, looked me up, put two and two together. My assistant forwarded me his emails this morning. My stomach dropped. What did he say? He scrolled, reading aloud. "Dear Mr. Hartman, I regret the misunderstanding at the wedding.
I was unaware of your true status. I hope we can discuss a mutually beneficial opportunity. I let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Status? I repeated bitterly. Not character, not heart. He read the next one. Since you are now married to my mother, I believe you have a moral obligation to help your new family. I am currently facing some financial challenges. A loan of $500,000 would resolve them and secure my children's future. My tea suddenly tasted sour. He never mentioned apologizing to me, did he? Henry shook his head. Not once. My heart cracked a little more. Henry placed his hand over mine. Ellie, he is drowning in debt, some of it with very unpleasant people. My lawyer did a quick check. Your son has been playing a dangerous game for a long time. Cold fear joined the ache in my chest. He could be hurt. Tasha, the kids. Marta's husband knows some people. Your grandchildren are being looked after from a distance, quietly. They'll be safe, whatever happens. As for Daniel, my eyes filled again. How do I just sit here when my son is in danger? Henry squeezed my fingers. You're not powerless, he said, but you have a choice to make. Rescue him with money, or let him finally face the real cost of his choices. I didn't know then that the choice I made would change both of our lives, and what came next forced me to choose between being a mother and being a doormat.
3 days later, I found myself standing in front of a crumbling apartment building on the edge of the city, clutching my handbag like a lifeline. Paint peeled from the walls. A broken bottle lay near the entrance. Somewhere, a baby was crying. I hadn't told Henry I was going alone. I just left him a note on the table. I need to see him with my own eyes. The hallway smelled of damp clothes and stale cigarettes. My footsteps echoed on the cracked tiles as I climbed the stairs, each creak under my weight sounding like a warning. 3rd floor, door 3B. I knocked. My knuckles left faint white marks on the wood. After a moment, the door opened a crack. Daniel peered through, eyes bloodshot, hair messy. For a second, he looked like the little boy who used to run to the window when he heard my keys in the lock. "Mom," he whispered, pulling the door wider. "You came." The apartment was small, cluttered, smelling of sweat and spilled beer. Empty bottles lined the coffee table. A pizza box lay open on the floor, its contents dried and untouched. "I'm not staying long," I said, remaining near the door. I didn't sit. I didn't put down my bag. He flinched at my tone. "Please, just listen." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a small path between the couch and the window. "Everything's falling apart. Tasha left, took the kids. The bank froze my accounts. I'm in deep, Mom. Deeper than you think." "Deeper than $500,000? I asked quietly. He froze. "He told you." "I showed you your messages," I replied. "Funny thing, though, you had a lot to say to him about opportunity and obligation, not a single word to me about remorse." He swallowed hard. "I was angry, drunk. I said things I didn't mean, okay?" I looked at him for a long, painful moment. His hands shook slightly. Dark circles sagged beneath his eyes. He was my baby and a stranger all at once. "You called the man I love trash," I said softly. "You mocked me in front of everyone I know. You laughed when I cried. You let your wife spit on my life's work like it was nothing." He flinched again, eyes shining. I know, and I hate myself for it. I can't sleep. I keep seeing your face. I'm begging you, Mom, help me." If Henry pays these people off, I swear I'll change. I'll fix things. I'll be the son you deserve. A familiar script. I had heard versions of it before. I heard my own thoughts whisper, "He's your son. Save him. You always save him." Another voice, quieter but stronger, said, "And what did that get you?" I took a deep breath. It shook on the way out. Henry wanted to help you. He was ready to write a check and be done with it. Hope flashed in his eyes. Then why? I told him no. The word hung between us like a slap. His mouth fell open. You... What? If we pay your debt, I continued, forcing myself not to look away. This cycle will never end. You will keep treating people like ATMs. You will keep confusing love with rescue. I can't do it anymore. I won't. Down his cheeks. He sank heavily onto the edge of the stained couch, burying his face in his hands. "They'll kill me," he choked. "You don't understand how these people work." "I do," I said quietly. "That's why Henry hired a lawyer. A good one. This man can help you go to the authorities, negotiate, declare bankruptcy, start over the right way. It'll be hard. Humbling. Long." He lifted his head, eyes wild. "You'd rather see me poor than help me? I'd rather see you alive and honest than rich and rotten." Placed a business card on the cracked copy table. It looked out of place in that room. "Call him," I said. "It's the last lifeline I'm offering. The next step is yours." As I turned to leave, his voice broke behind me. One more question. Will you ever forgive me?" My hand rested on the doorknob. Look back. No. But I hope someday you give me a reason to. Closed the door on his sobs and on the woman I had been for 61 years. I had no idea how much that one choice would change all of our fates.
Months passed. Life has a strange way of continuing, even when your heart feels like a cracked plate held together by habit. Henry and I moved into a small house near the water. Not a mansion, though he could have bought me 10. Just a cozy place with a garden and a view of the sea. He said, "I want you to have space to breathe, not space to get lost." Sometimes I'd sit by the window, watching the waves roll in, a lukewarm cup of tea resting between my palms. The seagulls cried overhead, wind rattled the glass gently. In those quiet moments, the questions came. Was I too harsh? Did I abandon my son when he needed me most? Or did I finally stop abandoning myself? Henry never pushed. He'd bring me a blanket, press a kiss to the top of my head, and sit beside me in silence. From time to time, his lawyer, Mr. Lewis, would call with updates. "Your son declared bankruptcy," he said once. "The loan sharks have been persuaded to back off under certain legal conditions. He's moved into a smaller place, taking odd jobs, court-ordered financial counseling." I listened, heart heavy and strangely hopeful. "Tasha?" I asked. "She's busy telling anyone who will listen that you ruined her life," he replied dryly. "But the people who matter know better. The video from the wedding, it got around." I winced. "The video?" "Yes," he said.
And as ugly as that night was, it has protected you. Anytime someone tries to paint you as the villain, the recording speaks louder than gossip. Karma doesn't always arrive with thunder, baby. Sometimes it comes in blurry videos and whispered conversations, in doors that quietly close for people who laughed at your pain. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Mom, it's Lily." My breath caught. Lily, my granddaughter, 11 years old. "Dad gave me your number," the message continued. "He said if I ever wanted to talk to you, I could. I miss you." Tears blurred the screen. My fingers trembled as I typed back. "I miss you too, baby, every day." We started talking slowly at first. She told me about school, her little brother, how they'd moved to a smaller apartment, but she liked that it was close to a park. She didn't mention Tasha much. One day she wrote, "Dad started going to meetings. He says he's trying to be better. I don't know what that means, but he cries a lot now instead of shouting." I stared at that message for a long time. People asked me, "Does it feel good knowing he hit rock bottom after how he treated you?" No, it doesn't feel good. It feels tragic. Necessary, maybe, but tragic. Justice, when it's real, doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like medicine, bitter but healing. 6 months after the wedding, Marta called me, her voice excited. "Turn on Channel 7 right now." I grabbed the remote, my heart thudding. The screen flickered to a local news segment at a community center. A small banner at the bottom read, "Former high roller warns youth about debt traps." There he was, Daniel, not in an expensive suit, but in a simple shirt and borrowed tie. No Rolex on his wrist, just a plain watch. He stood in front of a group of young people, hands trembling slightly as he held the microphone. 1 year ago, I thought money was everything. I cared more about what people saw on my wrist than what they saw in my heart. My fingers tightened around the remote. I turned up the volume, my breath shaking. I had no idea how much that speech would change the way I saw my son. The camera zoomed in on his face. He looked older, thinner too. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked a lot like humility. "I lost my house, my car, my so-called friends," Daniel told the audience. "But the worst thing I lost was my mother." My throat tightened. "She stood up to me," he continued, voice cracking slightly. "On the day she married a good man, I treated her like a joke. I called him names. I laughed with people who don't even remember my birthday. I humiliated the woman who raised me. And when I begged her to save me from the mess I made, she told me no." Some of the young people shifted uncomfortably. A few looked impressed. "At the time, I thought it was cruelty," he said. "Now I know it was the only real love I'd seen in years. She let me fall so I could see what I'd become." Marta sniffled beside me on the couch. I hadn't even noticed her come in. She squeezed my hand. The reporter asked, "What would you say to her now if she were watching?" He looked straight into the camera. For a moment, it felt like he was looking right into my living room. "Mom," he said, tears in his eyes, "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't know if I even deserve it. But I want you to know, I see you now. I see everything you did for me. The long hours, the sacrifices, the way you let me insult you and still answered when I called. I was blind, selfish, proud. You showed me the mirror and I hated you for it. But you were right." I couldn't breathe.
My chest felt tight, but not in the old painful way. He continued, I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for a second chance I haven't earned. I'm just telling you, I'm trying. I'm in therapy. I'm in recovery. I'm learning how to be a father my kids can trust. And if you ever decide to let me back into your life, I promise you this. I will walk, not run, step by step, on your terms, not mine. The segment ended with modest applause. The camera cut back to the anchor who said something about powerful redemption stories. I barely heard her. My phone buzzed. A message. Mom, I meant every word. My fingers trembled as I replied. I know you did. I heard you. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Can I see you? I stared at the screen. My heart and my pride battled quietly inside my chest. Then I thought of Henry's words. His choices are not your fault, but your boundaries are your healing. At the community center, I typed, next Saturday, public place, 1 hour, just you and me. I'll be there, he wrote back. The following Saturday, I walked into that community hall. My steps were slow but steady. I wore my simple floral dress, the one Henry said made me look like spring. Daniel stood up when he saw me. His hands shook. Mine did too. For a moment, we just looked at each other, 2 people carrying the weight of years of misunderstanding. Hi, Mom, he whispered. Hi, son, I replied. He didn't reach for me right away. He waited. That, more than anything, told me he'd changed. Slowly, I stepped forward and put my arms around him. He crumpled against me, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a child. I'm so sorry, he kept repeating. I'm so sorry. I stroked his back, my own tears falling. I know, I whispered. And I'm tired, Daniel. I'm too old to carry hate in my bones. So I'm going to do something for me now. He pulled back, eyes red. What's that? I'm going to forgive you, I said. But I'm not going to forget who I am. He nodded, understanding more than he would have a year before. We talked that hour. Only an hour. It wasn't magical. It didn't erase the past. But it was a beginning. A small, fragile bridge built from honesty and tears instead of money and manipulation. That night, sitting in my living room with Henry's hand wrapped around mine, I watched the sea from the window and finally felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. If you're still here with me, listening to this old woman's story, let me leave you with this, baby. Love is not the same as rescue. Sacrifice is not a blank check. And being a mother does not mean letting your children walk across your heart in dirty shoes. We raise our children with the best we have. Sometimes they grow into people we don't recognize. Sometimes they hurt us in ways we never imagined. But we are allowed, no, we are required to protect the small, tired, precious person inside us who has given and given and given. Karma doesn't always come crashing through the door. Often it moves slowly, in quiet bankruptcies, in empty nights, in mirrors that finally show people who they really are. And sometimes, if pride steps aside, karma brings not just punishment, but a chance to grow. If you are an elder who has been disrespected, listen to me. You are not crazy. You are not weak. Your tears matter. If you are a son or daughter who has taken your parents for granted, listen to me. One day, you will wish you could call them and they won't answer, not because they're angry, but because they're gone. Don't wait until you're standing in front of a camera to say the words you should have said at their kitchen table. And if you care about stories like mine, stories of mothers and sons, of heartbreak and hard-won healing, please like this video and subscribe. Not just for the numbers, but so more tired hearts can find the courage to choose themselves and still leave the door open for redemption. My name is Ellie. My heart has been broken, humiliated, humbled, and somehow healed. And my story, like yours, is still being written. What comes next? Well, that part is up to us.